Today marks the 23rd anniversary of the attacks on this nation and our way of life at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and Flight 93, which crashed into the fields of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We are here today to honor and remember those who performed the ultimate sacrifice so we can live free and enjoy the many liberties we have without fear of reprisal or retaliation. Also, let's not forget the sacrifices our military personnel have endured, keeping our national security threat at bay so we can live our lives protected and in peace. As we pay tribute to the 2,996 people who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001, I would like to remind everyone that the carnage and destruction has not stopped. The courageous rescuers went back to the sites day after day, night after night, working long tours of duty, searching with such dedication and tenacity for those innocent lives that were taken from us, and to give closure to the families and friends who witnessed the destruction and loss of life before their very eyes. In doing so, these brave people exposed themselves to the dangerous and hazardous materials which enveloped Manhattan Island and made them victims as well. They have suffered and are still suffering fatal, debilitating diseases and may have succumbed to their illnesses, or their lives have been changed forever. Today, I would like to honor and remember them along with the other victims of that day. Just a little figures, facts and figures. As of today, there are more than 132,000 responders who are being medically monitored and treated for their illnesses. More than 27,000 are suffering from the 9/11 related ailments. Over 5,000 responders have died from the 9/11 related diseases, more than those that were killed on that fateful day. 375 members, FDNY members, have died, in addition to 343 on that day. With the passage of time, it seems people's memories have diminished and the passion for remembrance has faded. Why this ceremony is so important that we keep their sacrifices alive and pray for those who are suffering. Thank you, and never forget. At this time, like I said, we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of an open mic. Anybody who wants to speak, anything you want about 9/11 or whatever, you're more than welcome at this time. I know a couple of the firefighters would like to speak. Steve, would you mind setting it off?
As the chief said, when we talked about doing this, we were going to do something that was a little bit smaller event. But as we look out here, we have a great crowd of people. And that is a testament to our community. A community that still remembers and a community that still supports the emergency services in this county. And we are forever grateful for that. I reflected, today bothered me a lot. I was working on 9/11. I was on a helicopter crew for UVA, Pegasus, and it was a rough day. We got dispatched to the Pentagon. We had two crews working. That day I was assigned to our critical care truck, which does the ground transports. The helicopter crew got dispatched and went out to the helicopter. And just before, as they were getting ready to lift, they got dispatched to the Pentagon. The air traffic controller came on and started saying, our tail number was N4UV. N4UV on the ground, on the ground, on the ground, on the ground. And like, wow. And he said to the pilot, Bob Pugh, come inside, call me. And so Bob went in and he came out and said, the airspace is closed, the military is up, and they are going to shoot us down if we launch. Wow, things changed that day, didn't they? Rescue helicopter that was going to have to be shot down because they didn't know what was going on. So we went to the Pentagon in a ground truck, critical care truck, myself and my partner and the driver. We got up there, we got staged. I never touched a patient that day. We didn't, because by the time we got up there, all the patients had been taken care of. And that kind of was an eerie feeling that we couldn't help. I think like most of us felt that day, we could not help. They said that day that the people, you were either going to live or die. And it didn't determine who you were, what you did. Civilians, firefighters, military, police, people going to work, kids going to school, children, grandparents, parents. Didn't matter. You were going to die if you died. And then the other people would live. And as the chief pointed out, that wasn't really true, because people are still dying today. And people are still suffering today. I found some words a few years ago that I was able to share here that really meant a lot to me. And these words are from Father Michael Judge, Fire Department of New York's chaplain, beloved chaplain up there. And he responded to the World Trade Center, as he did often to big calls. The day before, he had given his last homily. He gave it in the Bronx. Engine 73, Ladder 42, he was rededicating their firehouse after it had been renovated. And this was part of his last speech to the firefighters, but this also applies to anyone, particularly who's in emergency services or the military. These were Father Judge's final words on the day before. That's the way it is. Good days and bad days. Up days, down days, sad days, happy days. But never a boring day on this job. You do what God has called you to do. You show up, you put one foot in front of the other. You get on the rig and you go out and you do your job, which is a mystery and a surprise. You have no idea when you get on that rig, no matter how big the call, no matter how small. You have no idea what God is calling you to do. But He needs you, He needs me, He needs all of us. What great people. We love the job. We all do. What a blessing that is. A difficult, difficult job, and God calls you to do it. And then He gives you a love for it so that a difficult job will be well done. Isn't He a wonderful God? Isn't He good to you, to each one of you, and to me? Turn to Him each day. Put your faith and your trust and your hope and your life in His hands, and He'll take care of you, and you'll have a good life. The next day, Father Judge was death certificate number 1 from the World Trade Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, I'd like to ask the Water Rescue Chief and President of the corporation to say a few words. John Lott.
Thanks, Chief. I wasn't planning to talk today, but as you know, Richie can be pretty persuasive. Anyway, one of my strongest memories, besides all the horrors and so forth of that day, one of my strongest memories was how immediately afterwards we came together as a country. We were one. We were all Americans that day. And I think we've lost that, and that's really sad. So I'd like to reach out to all of you, including myself, and start talking to everybody. And really talking to understand. Someone very much wiser than me told me, you learn a lot more listening than you do talking. And by listening, I don't mean listening to reply, I mean listening to understand. So I'll leave you with that. But the other thing I'd like to say is I have never been prouder to serve with my sisters and brothers here. You're some of the finest people I've ever met. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. Also, I'd like to ask the Rescue Chief, Howard Lagermestein, to please come forward.
So we do a lot of these things, a lot of memorials, come out and try to honor and try to remember people. But think about this. On that day, 243 people got on a plane, never went home. 343 firefighters went to work that day, never went home. 60 police officers, 8 EMTs, several court services people, and then all the people in the towers, the 2,300 people. So as we sit here today, we're saying we want to remember, we want to take care of people. We want nobody to forget that day. Well, here's a challenge, and borrow from Chief Lai. Think about how we were and who we were on September 12th. Those are the people we need to be. That's how we honor the people that lost their lives that day. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Bobby T, you're not at a loss for words. Come on up. Bob's a retired firefighter from FDNY, and him and Lenny, the only ones we have left. And I'll talk about another one later on. Yeah.
Our group is getting smaller. We just lost a very good brother, Eddie Fulford. He was a fine fireman. He worked with Lenny and Bob Stanton, who's all lost, gone. Lenny and I are the last two surviving, I think. It's been tough. I've told the story before. I can't imagine what they all went through that day. We had bad times in our days, as Lenny has had in his days, but I cannot imagine what they were doing. The one story I heard was that firefighters were going up and they were on like the 70th floor or something like that, and a woman come up to them and says, what are you doing? We're trying to get you out of this building. And they, no thoughts of it collapsing at that time, is we're trying to get you out of this building. And she says to them, why? This is our job. This is what they're paying us for. We're trying to get you people safe. Oh, okay, and like I say, I just don't know what they went through or how they went through. I had some bad time. Lenny's had some bad time, but nothing ever like that. Sorry. They're in my prayers all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby T.
My name is Neil Gillen. I'm born and bred in Brooklyn, New York. I want to tell you when I saw that day. I was a civilian in law enforcement working in the district attorney's office in Brooklyn the morning of September 11th. I heard on the radio while I was doing my work that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And I thought to myself, what I do is a bots. How could you do that? It's the biggest building in the whole place. How could you miss it? When I went over there to the west side of the building, I was in the chief's office. And there was a crowd of district attorneys in there, along with me. And we're watching this fire. And I saw the hole in the North Tower. I knew that wasn't any small plane. I turned to one of the men in the office who didn't like me because I was a street cop. But I said to him, don't be surprised if this is not a terrorist attack. He looked at me like I'm the Duze Bots. I've never told this story before. So, with that, Manhattan Island in Brooklyn, my building was 1 mile, probably, if that far, from the Trade Center. I was on the 16th floor in the district attorney's office, like I said. I had a direct view. As I said that to this gentleman, I turned to my left, look out the window. And if you know Manhattan Island, you have Brooklyn, you have Manhattan, you have the East River and the West River. The Trade Center was on the west side, so I'm looking for the east side. I looked to my left, and over the Verrazano Bridge comes this dark object. I turned to my friend, I says, this looks like the military's here. But it wasn't. It was a plane full of people, just like us, who did nothing. I think the plane was out of Boston, I don't remember. But he comes over the Verrazano Bridge, over the Statue of Liberty, turns his wings, and hits the building. The windows in the city of New York and the big buildings, they can't open them because they're afraid people are going to jump. I couldn't hear the explosion, but I saw it. I didn't see it on TV. I didn't see it in the news. I saw that plane come over that bridge. over that Statue of Liberty and into that building and blow out the other side. My wife is trying to, I called my wife and I told her what happened. She said she saw her and she's crying. She's telling me to come home. But I couldn't go home yet. I wasn't going to go home yet. And I'm watching and watching and watching all these people. And everybody is in horror. I lost my friends. My wife lost friends. My friends lost friends. My police officer guys that I was working with, they lost brothers. And then I had to go to the restroom. I go to the restroom. And when I come back to go to the room, the first tire was gone. Gone. Smoke like the atom bomb. And I'm like, holy you know what? So I went back and called my wife and told her what was going on. And she went to get my son in school. And I'll tell you the story she told me when I got home. But anyway, after I come back and call my wife, I went back to the chief's office, and the second building is gone. Another bomb. I couldn't believe my eyes. At that point, it was time to empty the building because we were the tallest building in Brooklyn. Right next door in the hotel there, where the Secret Service is now, they were emptying the buildings. So we go down to get to the elevator. I'm waiting for the elevator, and I hear that the Pentagon is hit. I knew this was World War III in my mind. It was World War III. Like you said, Chief, we thought we were going to die. So I go downstairs, and we're all huddled on the street. Now, it's the street right outside the building goes right over the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge. They split off this way. Going past us, like hell's bells, are fire engines, police cars, ambulances. And I didn't realize it at that time, but none of those firemen that I know came home. They never came home. And I can tell you, to this very day, when I hear a fire engine or I see a plane, my brain goes back to that day. But while I'm standing there, this is something that nobody knows. When we're standing there, I'm looking up, and there's papers, photographs, ashes, everything coming right over us in the building, landing on us. I mean, this is something that nobody tells you what happened that day. So I went back into the building, and I told my boss I'm going home. He said, I'm going home. So me and my buddy get on the train. We walk to the Long Island Railroad, which is about a mile from the building that we were in. I sit on the train. It's the last train out of Brooklyn to go to Long Island that day. Because trains leave out of Manhattan and trains leave out of Brooklyn. Well, I always took it to Brooklyn, into Long Island. And I'm sitting on the train, and the two conductors are in the car. Nobody's saying a word. People are crying. They got their cell phones. They're trying to call their family members. Nobody's getting any answers. It was, I think, at the time, I don't remember, but I think cell phones were pretty rare. I know I didn't have one. I didn't want one. But people start getting on the trains in suits and dresses, and they're covered with ashes. Ashes. I'm like, this is the end of the world. So now the train finally takes off, and when you leave Brooklyn, you're in a tunnel. And you come out around this area called Atlantic Avenue, and you're on the elevated train for several miles. And I look out the window to my right, and I see all the smoke. Right up going up north in Manhattan. Right up going up north. So I get off the train at home. I drive home. My wife and my son are home. My wife's crying naturally. Everybody in the block is out. Whoever was out, it was, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't even remember anymore. And she tells me a story. What happened to her? In a panic that morning, not knowing what to do, she went to get our son, who at the time was probably 10. He's in grammar school. But she had to get gas. And when she went to the gas station, Sunoco on the corner right around from my house, there's an Arab American man working behind the counter. Now, President Trump told a story years ago, if you remember, all these people in Jersey dancing and fooling around. Well, I got news for you. My wife said to me that morning, she told me that when she went there, and she said to this guy, this Arab guy, whatever he was, Middle Eastern, she says to him, it's a terrible thing what just happened at your trade center. And he laughed in her face. So I just want you to know that I wasn't in the towers, I wasn't in the building, I was a mile away. But this is my recollection of the day, being there, present that day, on the worst day probably in American history. It wasn't January 6th. It was September 11th, 2001. And my friend Vincent Brunton, who was a captain in the fire department, he passed away. Dave Grimner, my friend, he passed away. Brian McAleese, my firefighter, my police officer friend, his brothers passed away. I can go on with names, but I'm not. But that's what 9/11 should mean to everybody in the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
I'm called Tweezer is my nickname. I'm a retired Charlottesville firefighter. And I was on duty that day. And we were doing our chores and then sat down, take a coffee break and turned the TV on. And that came on. Needless to say, that was the end of our day of work. We were glued to the TV. And it will never be lost in my memory. Just like you said, it was a day like this. It was one of the most beautiful days. And we just couldn't believe what we were seeing and experiencing. And later on in the afternoon, I'm a ladder company operator. We have a flag like that. We did put it up on the Ridge Street and in memory, but none of us have ever gotten over it. We're all brothers. It's something that you can't forget. As Richie knows, I've known a lot of the retired New York firefighters here and was given this. And I mean, we're all together. We're all brothers and sisters. And it's just a shame that something like that has to happen. All we can say and pray for is it never, ever happens again. And God bless all those people that are still fighting fires and doing the job. Wish I could, but somehow I'm shrinking. God bless y'all.
Thank you, Tweez. Anybody else would like to step forward? Come on, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. I didn't plan to speak. I just came as an observer. I, too, from New York, the capital, that's Brooklyn.
Bronx.
As we used to say, no one's perfect. Very briefly, I was deployed for 18 days as a Red Cross mental health disaster responder. I got called immediately after the 911 incident. I spent 18 days doing counseling as much as possible with both the survivors and some of the responders. My time was spent both in New York and in Staten Island. I just want to make it brief to say that as a direct eyewitness, I can attest to the unmitigated heroism of the first responders. They are truly our unsung heroes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sort of impromptu, but I'm contemplating it and being here and being so glad. It really is the community thanking our emergency responders, not firefighters, appreciating other firefighters or rescue squad workers or counselors and therapists and Red Cross, National Guard, military, all of the people that were doing their jobs and would do it again. And even now, we need you. 9/11 is also 911. We dial, you come. And you do as fast as you can to do as much as you can. We should never take that for granted. And to echo a sentiment which has been shared, the slogan from that terrible, terrible time was "United we stand," because divided we fall. And we are not red or blue. We are red, white, and blue.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, see, at this point of the program, I would like to ask Sean Rigsby to come forward. Sean is a member of Fire and Rescue. She's going to place the wreath at the piece of steel. Sean lost a loved one, not on 9/11, but her son, Dakota, was a sailor, U.S. Navy, and he was killed in the Sea of Japan in an accident with another vessel. And Dakota was a member here as well.
Ready? Aim! Fire! Aim! Fire! Aim! Fire! Recover!
Thank you. Please remain standing. This time I ask firefighter Mike Radal, please come forward and give us the ringing of the bells in the fire service. When a firefighter dies in the line of duty, he's memorialized in every firehouse in New York City by the bells in the firehouse ringing. I'll ask everybody for a moment of silence to remember all those who were lost on that day and who have still been dying. And also keep Eddie Fulford in your prayers and your thoughts. Thank you. You can be seated. At this point in the program, I'd like to thank all the members who came out and worked so hard to make this ceremony possible. Not a celebration of life. And thank everyone here for coming out and to join us in the remembrance. I want a special thanks to Bill Searfish. You don't see him, but he's cooking our refreshments. And the crew, and his crew. And I want to thank Diane Moore and the auxiliary for they served the dinner. They set up the hall upstairs, the maple room. They made desserts for everybody. And they're another arm of our organization that we can't do without. A special thanks to Chief Steve Elliott for his PA system. Steve always comes through. And lastly, I'd like to especially thank the members who built this memorial many years ago. Got a piece of steel from New York City. I was from Tower 1. And I asked if they could give a piece of steel in the shape of a cross, and they did. And the firefighters and members maintain it and keep it as you see it now. And thank all the members of the community who, to this day, you see all the people come and reflect and visit the memorial. And thank you, all of you again for being here. And when we're done, just go upstairs to the maple room and partake of some refreshments. Thank you. I ask our chaplain, Anthony Caps, to give us benediction. You're on.
Let us pray. A prayer for the police, firefighters, and EMTs. They rush in when tragedy strikes, whether it's a shooting, fire, flood, terrorist attack, or something else. They are called first responders because they train and equip to react quickly and effectively in the most unique and dangerous situations. Many of us give little thought to the police, firefighter, and emergency medical personnel who place themselves in danger on a regular basis, until we need them, of course. But whether tragedy strikes near us or not, we can play a valuable part in holding up the first responders in prayer. God grant the first responders everywhere may be strong and courageous, not afraid, not discouraged. Help them to know that you will be with them wherever they go. Strengthen their hands that are weak, their knees that are feeble. Make straight paths for their feet, focus their minds and hearts, steel them against panic and fatigue. Prayer for the families and loved ones of the first responders. Lord, have mercy on those who must wait and trust and hope every time first responder goes into action. They all are aware that the dangers their loved ones faces. Please, as your words promise, keep them perfect peace, steady their minds, and help them to trust in you. We pray for the emotional protection and recovery of the first responders. Gracious God, you know that first responders ride an emotional roller coaster. Even if their efforts are successful, the things they see and do take a heavy toll emotionally. Please guard their hearts, their minds, restore their mental and emotional resources when they have been depleted, and let them not become weary in the good work. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. At this time, again, thank you, everybody, for being here. And please, if you want, join us in the Maple Room for refreshments.